We can't find the Cardinals.
Yeah.
They're hiding from us, but we can find our buddy Derrick Goold from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Always fun at Cardinals camp. Derrick, great to see you. How was that
Good to
Nolan
see you, Scott.
Arenado experience yesterday?
That'll be
Oh, there he is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, up in Tampa is interesting. They've been pretty clear with us about his schedule and going every other day and wanting to maintain that. I mean, it was one of the first things after he answered all the questions about the non-trade winter and all the thoughts he had about reporting to Cardinal camp. One of the first things he said was, "I'm here to play a lot. I cannot wait to play a lot." And he's brought that up often. He wanted to take at bats right away with Live BP and get right into games, and they set up this schedule. It's all based around Monday's off day, but he didn't want to go 2 days off in a row and had a chance to hang out with some buddies. I'm sure you guys maybe got a chance to talk to DJ LeMahieu. I talked to Paul Goldschmidt yesterday up there in Tampa, and they were both saying how they got to spend time the night before with Nolan Arenado, who drove up. He got to play, and he got to play a little bit longer than he expected because he wanted 3 at-bats and out and then on the road. But 16 up, 16 down kind of meant that third at-bat came in the 7th inning. So he was in Tampa a lot longer than he expected.
Yeah. What you've followed him playing other spring trainings.
Yeah.
Has he always taken this many at-bats?
So, this many at-bats.
Like you just said, he said, I want to be out there. I guess we're kind of being skeptical about it, but
it's a great question. He's always been a guy who wanted to play and play a lot. Okay. This many at bats this early, the way he explained it was like, look, he put in all this work to be mobile. He put in the work to, kind of alter his swing a little bit and get back to a lot of that pull side power and comfort. And I think he wants to make the most of it, like get some positive reinforcement early on, see how it's working. That's something that he and the hitting coach Brant Brown have talked about. Brant Brown, despite all the stuff going on with, Nolan Arenado in the front office and whether he would be traded or not, the Cardinals' hitting coach Brant Brown visited with Arenado during the winter, spent time with him, and kind of talked through a plan to like, okay, here's where we can get you to. What do you want to do from your swing? Where do you think it went wrong last year? What were you missing? What comfort were you missing? And they want to get back to that. Like, that's something. So he did mention that, like, all right, get a lot of bats early, get a feel for it, see where it goes. It's not so much like get a lot of bats early, get that rhythm going, and then crank your way through the end of March into a new team. That wasn't kind of the thinking.
And you're talking about an elite player in our team. Yeah. Fringe Hall of Fame type of player.
Yeah. But probably a Hall of Fame player, right? 10 years, 10 gold gloves.
I feel like he's a Hall of Famer. We're not discussing Hall of Fame here.
All right. Sorry.
No,
that's December.
That's December. Yeah, it's off-season stuff. But my thought is the team wanted to trade him.
Yeah.
Whose spot is he really taking if he's still on here? That will push for that development. I'm not talking about, we'll sign somebody that'll be like it, because obviously they're not going to sign anybody. They're the only team left without a big league free agent so far, since the Marlins made a huge splash in the free agency. But whose spot is he taking?
It rocked Jupiter.
Rocked all of Jupiter.
Yeah, that's great. So it's not like linear, right? It's not like Nolan Arenado playing third cost this third base prospect playing time. It's more of a trickle down in the sense that with Nolan Arenado at third, then Nolan Gorman is not. Nolan Gorman is at second, so Brendan Donovan is not. Brendan Donovan is in left field, so Lars Nootbaar is not. So then Lars Nootbaar is in center, so Michael Ciani or Victor Scott II is not. So it really comes down to not so much a development question, but the classic conundrum of defense versus offense, Eric. This notion that, like, all right, do you go with a best lineup that produces the most offense, because that's Lars in center field right now? Or do you play to the ballpark that you have? Do you prioritize defense, which we've seen the Cardinals do and excel at, a run prevention style? And then you have Ciani or the young prospect Victor Scott. And then you go down to the bench. Like, where does Thomas Saggese fit in if, Nolan Arenado's at third and now there's one less spot on the bench? You have a right-handed, versatile, young rookie player in Thomas Saggese. Does he have a spot in the big leagues, or is his playing time going to be so minimal in the big leagues that they want him playing every day and continuing to develop AAA? So it's not like a direct line that's going to cost all of a sudden, Nolan Gorman isn't going to get 500 at-bats. He'll still get at-bats. It's more elsewhere and around the roster where those at-bats are going to go.
But this is my issue with the Cardinals. When I watch them,
Mhm.
if you're rebuilding, you want to rebuild around guys. Mason
Yeah.
Wynn's playing short.
Yeah.
Bang. We got it.
Yep.
You just shifted everybody around the infield and outfield and all this stuff. And that's, to me, I feel like that's part of one of the things that has gotten them to this spot is never having that guy that plays that position. Whatever it is, it's like, hey, you know what? You're showing up today and you're going to hit second. Now you're playing left, and tomorrow you're going to play third and you're hitting seventh. Like, why? As a young player, that's hard to adjust to. And I thought in this rebuild, whatever it's called, I got 7 guys. They're all going out there, and I'm mixing in catcher here and there. I'm mixing in a 1 platoon advantage, but we're an organization that's going to lock this in. And so you're saying that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think they still can. It's a question of, will production make the answer for them, right? Okay. Like that's back to where it's at, not so much that they can force the issue. One of the things, like exactly what you're talking about, it's like one of the skills that they had is also become their curse. Like, for years down here in spring training, I've heard from other teams who are around, the Mets, the Astros there for a while, and they talk about how the Cardinals always seem to like get that versatile guy, that guy who produces, maybe doesn't have an everyday position, but an everyday spot in the lineup. Tommy Edman comes to mind. I mean, you could go way back to the performance that they got out of Aaron Miles when he was here. So, I mean, I can run the whole gamut of a couple decades. Brendan Donovan is that guy who wins the Utility Gold Glove Award, right? So the Cardinals have had a track record of producing like contributing players who play a lot of different spots, while some of these other teams have struggled to do that. But that's also been their curse in the sense that it can make them impatient, right? Like they can, and it's really out there in the outfield, right? Where, Randall Grichuk is their guy until he's not. Randy Arozarena is their guy until he suddenly is not. Lane Thomas was their guy until he got hurt. And then when he came back, Harrison Bader was their guy. So, all these folks, and they were constantly, the word that John Mozeliak used that's appropriate is they were constantly like chasing. And over the last few years, they've been chasing innings with starters. But there was this notion that they were always kind of chasing the production at a position, and that made them impatient. They never let a guy kind of go through the rocky times that then allowed an Adolis Garcia to emerge or get the playing time that Randy Arozarena could have to emerge. These guys had flaws in their games. They went elsewhere and overcame them through playing time and opportunity. That was just never going to happen here with the Cardinals because the pressure to perform and produce and win was so on them that they went, well, we're going to go with somebody else. We're going to go with somebody else. We're going to go with somebody else. So this year, the commitment is like, okay, to that patience. And I think it's still there. Maybe not as many at bats because Nolan Arenado's here. Definitely not as many at bats for like a guy at first base because Wilson Contreras is here. But it still can be. They can still be patient. They can still see. All right, Lars Nootbaar, what do you do with all this playing time? You're not the next guy that we're going to ship off and become an all-star elsewhere. You're the guy who's going to play here without the pressure of being in first place. Let's see what happens.
More in a minute, but first, a quick word from our sponsor of this video. Oh, Todd Father, remember the good old days when we would have the cards in the binders, but then they'd get all messed up and we're trying to sell online and it's just real clunky? They really actually weren't the good old days, were they?
No, they were definitely not, but now there's a better way. The Arena Club has been dominant with this. You get to trade your cards, you could sell them, but the best part for me is getting them graded. I love everything about that, this new age of getting cards graded. You could display them on your online showroom, your mobile device. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the all-in-one trading card platform. You have to sign up for an account at arenaclub.com/foul. Just like Todd Father mentioned, there's a process that combines AI and human grading to get the job done. Right now, 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul. Use code FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/foul. Code FOUL for 20% off your first purchase. And now back to the video. Let me give you my take here on Arenado because I want to get your thoughts on what the results of this will be.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, you want to be with a team like Boston. That ain't happening. I mean, Bregman can't even get to third base in Boston. With the Yankees, my guess is it was a quick phone call of them saying, yeah, maybe we'd take them, but we would have you take most of the money. That's not the point here for St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Houston seemed like a perfect fit to me. I don't know what I'm missing there. I mean, they're always a contender. So I would be pissed off if I was the Cardinals and Houston was on the list. They figured out a trade. Then he said no. And now the list is now down to just really a few teams because it did sound like Houston was on the list. And then B, do you think he's holding off because he thinks that maybe the Yankees will give in eventually and realize that they need more help at third base? He might only get one crack at waiving the no trade clause to a team that he really wants to be on, say a top 3 team instead of a top 5 team for him. I'm just trying to comprehend where his head is at because he is likely going to start the season on a team that doesn't want him here. It sounds like he's okay to leave and they're not going to be contenders.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all in a good spot as far as him being here, to be candid. I think that's part of it. Like, as he walks out of the clubhouse here and off to the ballpark right there, I think they're in a good spot with that, just to your last point. But I don't really get the sense that he's trying to play chicken with the Yankees. In a sense, he's said, this is what I'm willing to leave St. Louis for. These are the traits that I want in a team, whether those are definitely contending for a championship, going all in, whatever you want to do, or how he described the Yankees, that they're really pushing for that championship. That's how he put it yesterday and described them. So that's part of the traits, but also is like, look, you got to look at it this too. I like the way you put that. They're like, okay, if you're going to waive the no trade clause for a second time in his career, you kind of want it to be the last time, right? You don't want to go to a spot where this is just the same conversation now for every 3 remaining years of the contract. You don't want to become the guy who's chasing after a championship while people move your contract around either. So I think that really limited his notion. He brought that up too, in the sense that he didn't want to move his family around running after the next best team to try to win a World Series with. He wanted to find a place where he could stay and do that. And so I think that's part of why that list is so limited. There's also all of the things that go on with his contract. I think you think back to when the Cardinals made that trade and how that trade almost fell apart just because they were trying to defer money. They had to introduce a second opt-out clause to give it the current day value. So like maintaining the current day value of that contract is so essential. And we saw teams just really reluctant to offer all kinds of contracts this year. And we see deferred money here and backloaded there. And if you come to this trade and go, okay, well, let's adjust this money to fit our current financial situation, then he has a say in that being uncomfortable as well. And that could be a reason why a trade just doesn't come to fruition. So there's a lot of elements here, but I don't get the sense that like the way you put it, Scott, is really good. I think he has a few places that he's willing to leave this spot for. He knows this place. There is at least some vibe, and you guys may have gotten it here, you may have gotten it here, that maybe they could force the issue. I was really interested in the fact that like the front office has set the tone for the winter, and the players now get to decide, is that really what they are? Is this really a transition? Is this really a rebuild? The players take over from here, and you see Wilson Contreras here, you see Sonny Gray here. They're not really settling for that. And I'm really interested in seeing like what manifests on the field versus what manifests in the boardroom. And if Arenado's around seeing that same thing and goes, all right, well, this place isn't that far away, or maybe they could cause a headache for a few things, and maybe he likes the opportunity here, or at least the comfort level here, more than just the unknown of going somewhere. So I don't think it's that case where he's like trying to play chicken with the Yankees per se, but he's just being very selective. So he knows that when he makes this move, it is the move to a better spot, to a better chance to win, and it's going to be the one that he closes out his career with.
It's the last one.
Yeah, that's what it kind of feels like. Yeah.
I mean, with Sonny, we didn't really hear Sonny's name. He has that money, so you almost have to say, was there no talk about Sonny? Was there no interest?
He shot it down. Like they went to him. So they had this press conference at the end of the year where they introduced the reset, which has now been rebranded a transition. This is what goes on. But anyway, so they set all this out there, like this is where it is. And I asked, do you need to have some conversations with the guys who signed here specifically for the promise that you were going to contend every year? This is part of your brand. So when you sign a player as a free agent, you get the notion that you get the history, you get the birds on the bat, and you get the knowledge that you're going to contend every year, that's what you're selling. Now that you have these guys who you signed as free agents, or in Nolan Arenado's case, traded, where he was willing to do a lot to come here, do you have to go to them and say, hey, look, we're changing our brand? and we recognize that we sold you on this brand. And Mozeliak said yes. He goes, those are conversations they have to have. He goes, I'm going to have them over the next 2 weeks. He had already had at least one of them and likely a few others. But he did go to those guys, ask them, like, do you want out? Do you want to be traded? Do you want us to find you a spot? Where would you like to go? And Wilson and Sonny both said, I'd prefer to stay. Wilson was willing. They were like, okay, but you're not going to be catcher because we want these young guys to get. And he was willing to move positions, not teams. And Sonny, he made the point that he came to the Cardinals for a lot of reasons, not just the annual contention, the proximity to home, the history, the people that he met, all those reasons. But he said also, like, I saw things that needed to be changed, that needed to be updated here, that needed to be like radically reimagined or rethought. And they're going to do that. So I could be a part of seeing that through. And so that's part of the reason why is, the GM meetings, it was like clear right then. Sonny, the word I was told by multiple people was his preference is to stay, and the Cardinals respected that.
That's awesome. I love it. Appreciate you being on, Derek.
Yeah, thank you guys. Always a pleasure. Welcome to Jupiter.
Yeah,
Thanks.
It's a beautiful day. All the weather.
Yeah,
So,
it's a nice day.
FT, we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.